Hello, ladies and gentlemen, business owners, my fellow citizens, and those that fly on planes a lot. My name is Daryl Guberman. I'm the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. My background is aerospace, medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution, where we dealt with just about every industry under the sun. I've gone into my education. I'm not going to bore you with that. It'd probably give everybody narcolepsy. But this video today is based on an interview given by Mr. Stan Deal, CEO of Boeing Global Services. Let me introduce everybody. First off, you have Stan Deal over here, Boeing Global Services. You have David Calhoun, CEO of Boeing, who states in many of his interviews, our regulator, the FAA, and you will discover in this video that the FAA made Boeing an FAA regulator in 2009. You cannot make this up. You go on further. Lieutenant General Kirkland Donald, thank you very much for your service. He is spearheading the 737 MAX team. I really don't know what his background is as far as quality. It doesn't appear that way. But anyway, thank you very much for your service. You have Mr. Scott Kirby, CEO of United Airlines, and most recently, Gerald Lederman over in Europe said in an interview that he thinks that it's because of COVID that Boeing's quality went in the shitter, basically. Well, Mr. Lederman, as we've done videos concerning your commentary, the real reason is that Boeing gave up source inspection to a piece of paper, an AS9100 certificate, which is the International Organization of Standards certification for all aerospace. Boeing basically said in a supplier bulletin put out in 2002, and you will see it here, that he said, if you give us a piece of paper, an AS9100 certificate, we don't have to send inspection. Just send us your parts and they come in and we put them on the plane. It's not that easy, but that's basically what it alluded to. You send us an AS9100 certificate. Quality is great. They also sit on the boards of ANSI and ANAB. You'll hear that too. And what happens is you just send us your parts. So that you're incorrect. And then we have Mr. Patrick Shanahan, who had integrity when he was Deputy Secretary of Defense. When he was interviewed, this article also will be down in the description. He stated, when asked about the F-35 program, he said it's fucked up. You can't make this up. The article's down below. You can't make this up. So this video today is about Boeing misdrilled holes on 50 undelivered 737 MAX jets. QA expert Daryl Guberman says more to come. Mr. Deal, you said, and I quote, "We have to maintain this discipline within our four walls, and we are going to hold our suppliers to the same standard." What happened with that bulletin in 2002 where you just released your quality, your source quality inspection to a piece of paper? Don't you remember that? If you're not there, I'm sure David Calhoun should know. Somebody should know at Boeing. And then he also said, "We recently instructed a major supplier to hold shipments until all jobs have been completed to specification." Why they weren't completed beforehand? What makes matters worse here is you're going to find out as I explore this with you, ladies and gentlemen, that the FAA gave regulatory authority to Boeing. So when David Calhoun says our regulatory authority, Boeing was a regulatory authority. If I was the CEO of Boeing and the FAA came in and gave us that prestigious, what federal agency gives you federal agency authority? He should have been down on the floor, hands rolled up, sleeves rolled up, and gone out there and been a cheerleader every day that he worked, rather than golf. You know what they say? It's a golf joke. He who plays golf putts, and I hope not. But you should have been. I don't know what you were doing. Who knows? But as the CEO, have somebody else go to one of your meetings and go downstairs, roll up your sleeves, because that's what we've done with every quality job that we've had throughout our term. When we worked for other people, we rolled up our sleeves, got in there. We didn't stay in the office making these histogram charts and all the rest of this mess. As a quality control director, manager, vice president, be down on the floor. Be the cheerleaders for your employees, and the fruits will blossom of quality. And here we go. You have ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation that has both federal agencies and corporations on board. They've been around for over 100 years. I'm not going to elaborate too much on this, but I just want to let you know this. In 2015, Randy Doherty, then the vice president of ANAB, the chairman of the IAF. The IAF is an international accreditation forum incorporated in Delaware. It is a repository for international and national accreditation bodies. He was also the principal on the IAF, which means he had complete control as the chairman, principal, and also the vice president of ANAB. He handed over leadership to this communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. Zhao Jinwu was also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services that certified the laboratory in Wuhan, China, the BioLevel 4 lab. During this time, when he was there, they had scientists that went over from the United States, and the scientists in the laboratory cried basically to the scientists that visited them from the United States and said, "We need trained technicians, please." In a 2019 CDC training document for virology labs, the only virology lab mentioned in this training document is Wuhan, China. Sounds something strange, huh? But anyway, what they said on page 3, and I quote, "The most integral part of any laboratory is solid trained technicians. They're the backbone of any lab." You'll find out that Ms. Pamela Sale, the Vice President of Quality for Laboratory Accreditation, said under deposition that from one laboratory to another, they lack protocols. So basically, she confessed the release of the COVID virus from Wuhan, China. In 2013, I gave a speech at the American Society for Quality, and Mr. David Levy was there. He was the Region 3 Director, and ASQ, the American Society for Quality, owned ANAB, the American National Accrediting Board, 50%. ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, owned ANAB 50% during this time. And he said, "We have no problem with what you're doing, Mr. Guberman. In fact, ANAB supports you." Yeah, right. In 2016, because the heat was getting a little bit hot in the kitchen for him, Randy Doherty wrote us a note, an email, and he stated that he said, "You can either join ANAB, IAF, or both, but how in good conscience could I join when you just saw that he handed over the leadership of IAF to a communist Chinese national who is mandated by his country of origin to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7, could not do that." What we did is in 2019, we saw after Pamela Sale gave her little deposition concerning laboratory accreditation, and here's a better picture of Zhao Jinwu in the lab in Wuhan when he was still the IAF chairman, and he's the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services that issued the certificate, and they are equivalent in accreditation to ANSI ANAB. ANSI ANAB are underwriters for both the IAF, the International Accreditation Forum Incorporated in Delaware, and also the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia. We have Ms. Pamela Sale now, Vice President of Quality, while Zhao Jinwu was over there in China. She was giving her deposition over here in the United States. I'm just going to change her sentence just slightly. I'm going to add the word phlebotomy lab, BioLevel 4 lab, and around the world. And she said, "One of the issues that there is no commonly agreed upon set of standards at forensic labs, BioLevel 4 labs, and phlebotomy labs around the country and world have to follow. Instead, there are informal guidelines that labs can choose to follow or not." By her saying that, the laboratory function of the laboratory is out of control, and that's why the virus escaped. She basically confessed to it. I found out that A2LA, which is an accreditation body that many of our federal agencies use that sit on ANSI's board, I did a video on this talking about the improprieties because they sit over by ANAB, which also accredits laboratories. They sit on A2LA. They basically pass it back and forth, I guess. I don't know. And I did the video. And as you can see, they do sit on ANSI's board, of course. And I did the video. And at the time, they were also sitting on the IAF when China, 2015 to 21, had complete control over the IAF incorporated in Delaware. What happened is I exposed this factor. Miss Ashley Morton called from A2LA, and she said, A2LA and ANSI are two separate accreditation bodies unto themselves. One doesn't sit on the other's board. Well, guess what? I did a video, and this is what I showed. What happened is Mr. Russ Cheney, and I want to say this to you, Mr. Calhoun, Dave, because as a chairman of ANSI, what the chairman says is indicative of what the guiding light is for the organization. Just like you're the chairman you're the chairman of of Boeing. If you were to say what what this guy said, you'd probably get fired. And this is what he said, and it is as if you were saying it to me and everybody else. Jim Tassett from Lockheed, everybody else, the FBI, Christopher Wray said it to me. It's basically because he is the chairman, he is the shining light of the organization. I don't need to rub that in. You already know it. You are the CEO after all. This is what Daryl, Mr. Cheney, said when I exposed that. He called me up. I don't know him, and he doesn't know me. And this is what he said.
Message and I'll return your call as soon as possible. Record your...
Yes, he did say that. I wrote Joe Batia, the CEO of ANSI, a note asking him for an apology. He sent it off to his attorney. Now, I want to show you this as well because each one of the board members, membership approved, government approved, everybody who sat on ANSI's board basically condoned what Russ Cheney said. And let's try it again. And here's Russ Cheney.
Please leave a message
and here's his phone number because we took a snapshot. Their lawyer, Jameson Carroll of Carroll and Weiss in Atlanta, basically said this. I'm not going to read it to you. I'm going to leave it. Now we move up to 2022. In 2022, gentlemen, I applied for director at large at ANSI. I figured that we could change their mantra. Just as when I opened my business in 2011 as a competitor to the American National Standards Institute and the American National Crediting Board, and I would go out on the road all over the country, and you'd have people, trying to get them to convert to a GPMC registrars, and they would say, no, we must maintain an ANSI ANAB accreditation. That's what we have to do. I don't know anything about it, but we just have to do it. We will get into that further. But anyway, I applied for this position, figuring that I can improve the quality. Just as if you allowed me into your facility via your suppliers, your quality would not be as bad as it is now. It would be almost perfect. I could guarantee that. Because my company is my name. It's my heart, my soul, my guts, everything. ANSI ANAB, all it is you sit on their board. So anyway, this is what we did. What makes matters worse, gentlemen, is 2019, Russ Cheney calls me up and says, half a nut, fuck you. All of a sudden, I put this in. I had to answer 9 questions what Daryl Guberman could do for ANSI. And guess who was the chairman of the nominating committee? No other than Russ Cheney. Do you think they'd pick me? I had 16 letters of recommendation, gentlemen, stellar letters of recommendation that went into the whole situation about aerospace, about quality, about how bad it is. And this is a testament, Dave, to what's going on at Boeing. The ASQ sits on ANSI's board. You also have ANAB that sit, of course, on ANSI's board, right over by Boeing, that forces down the throat of their suppliers through their supplier bulletin that I'm going to show you. Hold on. There's 7 different registrars that sit on ANSI's board, right over by ANAB, the accreditation body they use. Is there any oversight? Is there any confidence in the integrity or quality of those certificates? Absolutely not. And Spirit Aerosystems, that now Mr. Patrick Shanahan is the CEO, they have Intertech over there. Intertech registrars, and they sit on ANSI's board. No wonder why you're getting substandard quality. They're all in bed together. There's no oversight. ANSI ANAB has 10 different registrars that sit actually can issue certificates in China. ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. You will find out that on Boeing supplier portal, you can go there today, and you'll find out that it says ANSI, ASQ, National Crediting Board, ANAB, or internationally equivalent. And they've changed in 2018, so you would think that Boeing is so crazy about quality that they would have changed it. Within a year, 6 months, they would have changed it. 6 years later, it still says ANSI ASQ National Accrediting Board, and we have a picture of it, so if they change it, I'll show you the picture. You have them, they're sitting on the IF during the time and term of communist China between 2015 and 2021, when you have Christopher Wray say, we must maintain vigilance over China, yet because of their membership to ANSI, the FBI's on board, he's been watched over. Many federal agencies and corporations got their information hacked during this time and afterwards. One of the worst things is we found out that Iran and Pakistan sit over by ANSI and ANAP, Iran who's financing Hamas, Iran, who is subject to the 3 soldiers who just most recently got killed, and maybe ANSI, ANAB, certified the missile that killed them. Who the hell knows? But I don't say this about the people of Iran or Pakistan. I say it about the leadership. I say it about the leadership. They are equivalent in accreditation to ANAB. So I use them as an example. When Boeing says, ANSI, ANAB, or internationally equivalent, this is who it can be. Don't let anybody kid you. They are underwriters, Mr. Calhoun, Dave. They are underwriters, so that means they are responsible for that door that popped off. They're responsible for the rivets in the system. They are responsible, legally binding, because they used to say we only certify the system. Then all of a sudden we discovered on several contracts from the United States government, here's one of them. You can write this down and take a look because you will see, because this is a contract that stays unto perpetuity. If they did try to eliminate these contracts, we have plenty of pictures and plenty of documentation. And here it is. It states right on there that ANSI ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum, which means that there's a problem, not just in the system, but in the product that is produced within that system. You have somebody that you can sue. This is Boeing now. Boeing sits on ANSI's board, right over by all of these different corporations, federal agencies. Boeing sits there. Here is the bulletin, gentlemen, from Boeing. There you go. This is the bulletin that they gave 2002 to their suppliers that said, if you are ANSI ANAP accredited by for AS9100, just send us your certificate. We don't have to send in any more inspection. Send in your parts and we're good to go. To make matters worse, well, Dave, you're stating all the time that our regulator, you are a regulator. You should have been down on the floor with your sleeves rolled up and been a cheerleader, because that to me, as a CEO, and I run my business, that to me is an honor. I guess you guys got complacent. No wonder why rivets are missing. And here it is. The FAA increased the authority, this is from 2009, increased authority of Boeing's commercial airline division to self-certify its own aircraft, which meant Boeing employees to perform tasks on behalf of the FAA that include oversight and testing and product standards, along with certification of aircraft technologies and new aircraft designs. So Dave, you are an administrator of the FAA. How in good conscience, ladies and gentlemen, business owners, FAA is a regulator, Boeing is a regulator. Is there any overseeing? Absolutely not. And here's their portal that says ANSI. I changed it to ANSI ANAB. If you look at it today, it still says ANSI ASQ National Accrediting Board, which is ANAB anyway. So they didn't change it, though. That's how much pride they have in their quality. You also have the fact that they call for internationally equivalent, which I showed you could be Iran or Pakistan. Now here's this one. You have a Boeing employee sitting on the board that can be the ANAP Management System Accreditation Council grants, suspends, and withdraws accreditation of certification bodies, which are like registrars, like Intertech, like DNV, like all of these organizations that, 7 of them at least out of the 60 sit on ANSI's board. And here they are. Alan Daniels, who most recently going to be giving a speech about quality. How the hell could he give a speech about ISO standardization when he can't keep his shit together at Boeing? Yes, he cannot keep his shit together. Both of these guys, they can't keep their shit together. In fact, Tim Lee was, I think, the operating manager for the IAQG, which is coming up very shortly. And here we go. To compound these issues, you have the factor that Boeing was fudging documentation on their aircraft. On top of that, their Kobe steel was fudging documentation. So birds of a feather fudge together. Also, most recently in their composite facility for Bell Boeing, composite facility for the V-22, They were fudging some documentation, heat cycles, pressure, temperatures of autoclaves for these parts. And that was from 2007 to 2018. That's 11 years. You also have sitting on there the FAA. They're in bed together. Terrible. You have the Department of Transportation. You have the Society for Automotive Engineers, which handles all the documentation for the aerospace industry. This is a good one. IAQG, the International Aerospace Quality Group, or as we fondly have been calling it for the last 13 years, is aircraft quality good? Not really. It's not that good. In 2002 or 2003, a procedure came out that, of course, they were handling it because they all intermeshed together, IQG, SAE, ANSI, ANAB, etc. They put out a procedure for the OASIS Online Aerospace Supplier Systems information. So information systems, what that does is that puts you on a database so that Boeing, Lockheed, they can all look in and see if you're ANAB accredited certification for AS9100 so they don't have to send inspection out to the facility. There you go again. And here you go. And this is what it says. You tell me if this is about quality. An AS9100 certified organization does not have an option to be excluded from the OASIS database. That's number one. Number two is a good one because it states, 4.3, if an AS9100 certified organization refuses to be entered in the OASIS database, for example, refuses to pay database fees, their AS9100 certification will be revoked by the registration certification body. The last thing I'm going to say is this, is that when we began this business and we still go out and we meet with people, they said, Daryl, we have to use ANSI ANAB. We're told by our supplier, we're told by the first tier people that we have to deal with, have to do this. My companies that are under the GPMC registration, they send to second tier suppliers. Some of them have gotten into Boeing because Boeing is such a large organization. Same with Lockheed. I have a company that goes directly to Lockheed Martin, accepts their certificate without a problem. There is no problem when you have Daryl Guberman representing you. Now, I sent my CV in to Boeing, ladies and gentlemen, business owners, people who fly a lot, and we've tried our best as we could. There's, if they do not grab a hold of me, you're going to have, and my team, you're going to have a lot more failures up to and including loss of aircraft and loss of life. As a matter of fact, Lockheed Martin, who sits on ANSI's board right over by the FAA, DOT, FBI, they came out with an article most recently that even after their 801st aircraft, they're still producing aircraft that have rejections, or as Dave Calhoun calls it, or aerospace industry, escapes. What these people tell me, the same ones that send in to Boeing their certificate, Boeing doesn't send inspectors there. They send in their parts. They say, Daryl, this is what we call it in the industry. Pay to play. That to me is utterly preposterous. Gentlemen, I hope, Mr. Stan, Deal, I gave you an insight. David Calhoun, everybody, but you look at ANSI, half a nut fuck you, they say to me, and because you sit on that board, that diminishes the integrity of your organization, of you, and that's why a lot of it is their qualities and their shit, or look who they're affiliated with. Garbage. My telephone number is 203-556-1493 or Daryl, DARYL, TQRS @yahoo.com. I thank you, and thank you, gentlemen, for stopping by.